What is going on, everybody? It's your boy John, and welcome back to Gearbox. So today we are back in the Toyota Supra on a Friday morning. Can't get much better than that. What I wanted to talk to you guys about today is the fact that, number one, we'll preface it by saying the Supra is a unbelievable car. I really struggle to find truly bad things about this vehicle. I think it's an awesome platform and an absolute blast to own and to drive. But of course, just like anything else, nothing is perfect, and the Supra falls right into that category. Some of the things that we're going to talk about today are really just some things to keep in mind from an ownership perspective, and maybe some preventative things we can do to keep our ride in tip-top shape. Some of these things are minor, some of them are maybe potentially bigger issues, but all of which can be prevented and kind of taken care of in due time with ownership. So without further ado, let's get right into it. First thing I want to talk about today is the fact that the batteries in the Mark V Supra tend to die really quick. I have zero explanation for this, but what I will tell you is after going to places like Thunder Bunny Racing or, race shops that deal with Supras, they all pretty much recommend to put this thing on a battery tender, especially when you're tuned. God forbid that dead battery fries your ECU. That would be a problem after getting an unlock by Femto. But either way, a dead battery is just not something fun to deal with. So keep that in mind. Do yourself a solid, get a battery tender, and you can at least sleep a little bit better at night. Second thing to talk about is the fact that apparently this transmission has a leaking issue. I would assume it comes from like a crush washer or some sort of gasket in the transmission, but that's kind of a big one, especially if you don't realize that it's actually leaking and you're just having some metal on metal contact, no lubrication. That's a recipe for disaster. I'm not saying you need to necessarily check your transmission fluid constantly, but just be aware of that. Check it every once in a while, have your dealership or whoever's doing maintenance check on it, and once again, give you that peace of mind to keep this vehicle on the road for a long, long time. Similarly, the B58 engine in this car, and a lot of BMWs out there as well, tends to have an oil leaking problem. Once again, it's probably the same crush washer thing or a gasket type of deal. If you guys have been watching this channel for a while, I'm constantly making sure my fluids are good and kind of up to snuff with the levels that they should be. And the engine oil is obviously a big component in that. Now, one of the most unique things about the B58 and the Supra is that there's, to my knowledge, not a traditional dipstick. The only way to measure the oil level in your car is by going into the infotainment system and measuring it through the computer. I struggle to find a way to like that. I kind of like the tactile, pull the dipstick out, get a rag, wipe it off, dip it back in, check the level, as well as just seeing the overall color of the oil. But unfortunately, the B58 does not let us do that, so we've got to make do with what we've got. Either way, be cognizant of that. Similar to the transmission, if we're not taking care of the power plants that is powering this vehicle, that can be a recipe for disaster that I don't know about you guys, but I would much rather avoid at all costs. Number 4 on this list, we are back in the engine bay, and this is actually something that I caught without really knowing this is an issue. But the coolant consumption in the Supra is definitely something to keep in mind. The other day, once again, I was doing my typical fluid checks. Hadn't done one in a minute, but I also haven't driven this car as much recently, with it being the summer and going on road trips and all that type of stuff. But my coolant is low. I then went to BMW, purchased the exact coolant that goes into this car. Apparently apparently it is a special blend, and I don't know if that's like a, you know, marketing ploy to only sell that coolant or whatever, but it seemed a little bit more important than most vehicles to run this specific coolant, specifically the green cap coolants from BMW. So went ahead and purchased that, and now we don't have the issue anymore. But once again, similar to the transmission, similar to the oil, if we start overheating our engine, bad things can happen. It's a simple check. Just keep a gallon of it in your garage and you can thank me later. Another big thing to keep in mind with the Supra is the fact that it is prone to an EGR blockage, or just blockage of the EGR in general. Of course, this is going to be the exhaust gas type of stuff, little carbon deposits, and, you know, that sort of realm. Really just making sure that we are running our engine properly. We're allowing for cool down periods and doing all the right things that we should be doing with any type of high performance sports car, as well as letting the engine breathe. You know, I'm not telling you to go speeding down the highway, but it is also a good thing to floor it every once in a while and really clear out all of those deposits to keep our engine running smooth and efficient. That EGR blockage, if you start having that issue, that can be a big, expensive problem on your hands. So it's best to just avoid it at all costs and make sure we're taking care of our engine properly. The next entry on this list is a little bit disappointing given the performance, you know, style car that we are in. But the front lower control arms on this vehicle are apparently fairly weak compared to everything else on the car. Really, this shouldn't be an issue for most people unless you are driving this car hard and or tracking it, but definitely something to keep in mind if you A, are going to drive it hard, or B, you know, maybe you want an excuse to get a new mod for your car. Lower control arms is a really good option for you. Once again, to keep your car on the road, make sure we're not running into any mechanical issues on the suspension side of things. And for the last entry on this list, if you've watched any videos regarding some issues with the Supra, this comes up every single time. And that is the fact that we have pretty fragile soft paint on this car. Now, if you're anything like me, I love keeping my car as clean and spotless as possible. And that also includes not having rock chips or not having any imperfections in the paint. And unfortunately, this car falls victim to a lot of that. Now, of course, we're going to see a lot of that sort of stuff on the front end of the car as opposed to the rear. But what you will also see is down the side of the car, the way the wheel well kind of dips in, it exposes a decent amount on the tread of the tire, which is going to be kicking up rocks into your kind of side rocker panel, side skirt area, as well as against the rear hips of the car. Now, really, there are two main things that we can do there. Number one is getting some type of like mud flap, rock guard type of deal, which I personally hate the look of. And number two is either a ceramic coat and or PPF, right? And if you don't know what PPF is, that's paint protection film. It's a clear bra that goes over your car. You can either do the whole car or just the high impact areas. But either way, that's going to be the surefire way to make sure your paint stays good and pristine for as long as possible. So guys, that's going to do it for another episode of Gearbox. If there's any other areas of the Mark V that I have missed, feel free to drop them in the comment section down below. If you like this video and you found it helpful being a Mark V Supra owner, please give this video a big fat thumbs up. And as always, guys, hit subscribe, hit the notification bell. You know the drill. And until next time, peace.